Hi, Tiffany Arielle here, and we are back with the final video in our egg freezing series. So before we get into the content of this video, I did kind of want to just give a recap of what has happened so far, as well as just like a general summary of what the process was like, because I don't think I gave a proper summary beforehand. So, the way that this works is once you've made the decision to get your eggs frozen or go through IVF, because all of this that I'm going through is the same as the first part of IVF. So then you find your doctor, you find your clinic, you do all that good stuff, right? So you go in for your initial exam and consultation. So you talk to the doctor, they do a pelvic exam, they do an ultrasound, they order a bunch of blood work. All of that I went into way more detail in my first video, which will be in the cards above. So then once you get all that squared away and they don't find anything major wrong in your blood work, at that point, what would happen is you would go in for a baseline, what they call a baseline appointment. At that point, they're going to give you another ultrasound to make sure you don't have any cysts or anything else going wrong. If everything is good, at that point, you would proceed to the next phase. If things are not so good, they will give you some sort of action item. What am I saying? And then you would basically address that and come back, to recheck again for another baseline appointment. Now, generally speaking, once you go for your initial consultation, they would likely have put you on birth control. So I was put on birth control. And so at this point, if you go to your baseline appointment and everything is good, at that point, they're going to tell you to stop taking the birth control or whatever else you were on to prevent you from ovulating. And so then you would wait for your period and then you would start the injections. So all this process of the baseline appointment and the injections, including the trigger shot and all that good stuff, is in my second video, which will be linked up above. So once you've done the trigger shot, which is basically what you do 36 hours before the procedure to kind of release everything, that is when you have your actual procedure. So I did have to do a few things to prep for the procedure. Number one, they wanted me to do a bowel prep because they said that it can be easier to retrieve the eggs if you just kind of clear everything out beforehand. And number two, it is a procedure. It's not a surgery, but it is a procedure. So there are certain rules, in terms of drinking water and stuff like that you don't want to do prior to. So they have me doing what they call a bowel prep, which basically means that I have to drink this, which is a dye-free magnesium citrate. It says saline laxative oral solution, and I got the lemon flavor. So I'm about to drink this whole bottle, and we're gonna see what happens. But they also told me to make sure to hydrate. So I got this dye-free electrolyte solution. This is basically Pedialyte. I have 3 of these in different flavors. So I'm gonna be drinking those for the rest of today. And from now until midnight, I cannot have any more solid food. I can only just drink liquids. And then after midnight, I'm not supposed to drink anything at all, including water. So no water or anything after midnight. And then I have to be there at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and drink my stuff. I'm going to drink my Pedialyte all day, and I'll check in with you guys tomorrow. Y'all, I had to come back because why does this taste like sweet and sour candy? This is really sweet. I was not prepared. It's really sweet, but it's also really tart at the same time. I really feel like I'm drinking a sweet and sour candy. Anyway. And so after 3 p.m., once I drank the bowel prep, then I just kept drinking Pedialyte and some water throughout the rest of the day until 11:30 p.m., which is when they told me not to drink anything, not even water. So basically, so at that point I went to bed, got up the next morning. I had to be there at 7 a.m. My procedure was at 8 a.m. So when you get there, they basically just kind of did more paperwork, which I had already done most of the paperwork ahead of time, but there was still some additional paperwork I had to do. They ask you about medications you're taking. They ask you what time you took your trigger shot, stuff like that. And so what else? Then they checked my blood pressure. They checked my temperature. And then once they had a room ready, they put me in a room, they put me on an IV, and they put me on a blood pressure cuff. And of course, by this time I was in a hospital gown and a hairnet and stuff like that, because you can't be in regular clothes. So once it was time for my procedure, they basically wheeled me and over to the operating room, and then I actually had to walk myself from the bed to the operating table. Because I think it's because of the way the table is set up. So it's not just like one like solid table. It's kind of like two pieces, and the bottom part like kind of comes down like this. And it makes sense because when you think about it, when you're at like the OBGYN, like you're sitting in the chair, I mean, you're like leaned back, right? And your feet are like in the stirrups. But when you're going through this procedure, you need to be in a similar position so that they have access to you, because they're not cutting you open, right? They're going in with a ultrasound, the same ultrasound you've been had this whole time, and they go in with like a suction needle and they basically extract the eggs like that. Which I'll get into that a little bit more later. So basically, like, you're on the bed, and then what she did was she kind of put my legs onto some type of cushions, and then at that point, they can kind of like basically make the table come down, and that's how the doctor does the procedure. By this point, I was asleep. I only vaguely remember my legs being put on the cushions because they do put you to sleep. I was not under like, I didn't have a breathing tube or anything like that. It was just IV propanol or whatever they call that. So I was asleep, but it wasn't that long. But yeah, so when I woke up, I felt okay, at least initially. Well, I take that back. So when I woke up, I remember my throat being sore, and it was kind of weird because I was like, why is my throat sore? So I drank some water, and that kind of helped. But yeah, the anesthesiologist said she didn't put a tube down my throat, so I was kind of like, why is my throat sore? But I think it must be because of the oxygen mask that they had given me. I think something in that probably just irritated my throat. But other than that, I didn't have any problems when I woke up. I wasn't dizzy, I wasn't nauseous or anything like that. Nope. Hi guys, I am at the center. I just had my egg retrieval done. They were able to get and freeze 7 eggs. I'll have to talk to the doctor about that and whether they think I should get more or not. We'll see. But I'm kind of leaning towards no, just because I don't think I really care that much. But yeah, so I had to get here at 7 a.m. and I actually got here early, like 6:30. So we were just kind of sitting there for a while, had some paperwork. They took my blood pressure, took my temperature, and then they put an IV on me, had my procedure at 8, and it went really fast. I've basically been in the room just chilling for the past hour, and they just told me that I'm cleared to go home. You cannot drive yourself home because you were under anesthesia. So you have to have somebody either with you or somebody to come pick you up. I would definitely recommend just having somebody with you because we were only there for a couple hours. Like, I had to be there at 7, and by like 10 we were gone. So it's like, if you can find somebody who can spend 3 hours of their life, you know, at the facility with you, like, it's definitely better. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the room by yourself, like before and after, and it's just kind of like boring. Yeah. So what else was I going to say? Okay, so in terms of the procedure, as I mentioned, they're going in with the ultrasound and the needle. And what they do is they kind of like go into the follicles, like at least the ones that they deem have gotten big enough, and they're going to extract all of the fluid out of the follicle. And then what they do is they give all of that fluid to the embryologist, who's basically going to extract the eggs from the fluid, and then they're going to determine whether the eggs are mature or not. So there's like, I think it's like there's like 2 levels of maturity. There's like the most mature, then there's like one level down below, which is like kind of mature, but not really. Then there's eggs that are just like not mature at all. So what I understand is that they would freeze the ones that are mature and then the next level down, but the ones that are just not mature, they're not going to even bother with them. So then I had 7 eggs. They were all mature, like the most mature. So that was good that at least I got to keep all of them, because it would have been unfortunate if I would have had 7 and then only like 5 were freezable. But anyway, we got all 7 to freeze. So that's good. And what else? So the embryologist, she came in and told me like before I even left from there how many eggs she was able to freeze. So it's pretty quick because you can't just have these things like out at room temperature for too long. So it's very quick that they do this. So the facility is kind of like attached to their lab, like it's like kind of in one place, so that way they can easily transfer things back and forth. What else do I want to share? Okay, so in terms of after the procedure, Hello everyone, today is Tuesday, November the 9th, and so this is the day after my egg retrieval. I just wanted to update you guys on my recovery process, as well as the instructions that they gave me, because I don't think I went over that yesterday. But basically, I'm fine. I haven't had any cramping. I don't appear to have any significant bloating. I haven't had any dizziness or nausea, which they say can happen from the anesthesia. I have not taken any type of pain medication. Like, honestly, tell you the truth, I basically feel like nothing ever happened. Um, yeah. So I guess I've been lucky, but okay, so I have the I don't know how to pronounce this word, but basically the post-retrieval instructions. It says you are supposed to rest at home with minimal activity for the rest of the day. You may experience lightheadedness, dizziness, and sleepiness following the anesthesia. Do not stay alone, in all caps and in bold. A responsible adult must be with you until tomorrow. Avoid activities such as lifting, pulling, or pushing for a few days. I was told that I could shower today without assistance, or yesterday with assistance. I am not supposed to drink alcohol, drive a vehicle, operate machinery, power tools, or make any important decisions or sign papers until 24 hours after anesthesia, which that's already passed now. It says increase your diet slowly until you can tolerate a regular diet without nausea. I wanted IHOP, so I had an omelet and pancakes afterwards, and I've been fine. So, and then it mentions the pain medication. It's saying these things may cause nausea and vomiting, so don't take them on an empty stomach. Then they give some instructions in case you do have problems. It says you may have minimal vaginal bleeding for 1 to 3 days after retrieval. I didn't have any of that either. I did wear a panty liner yesterday just in case, but yeah, nothing. It says it is normal to experience abdominal swelling and or pressure for up to 10 days following your procedure. I don't feel like I have any of that. I weighed myself today and I actually weighed less than I weighed a few weeks ago, so I think I'm good there. It says if you've been told you are at risk for ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, weigh yourself daily and call your IVF coordinator if your weight increases, blah, blah, blah. Then it says it is important to maintain clear, lightly colored urine output. So I've been drinking like the Propel, like electrolyte water and just regular water all day. And I've been good on that front. It says I should expect a period 7 to 14 days following the retrieval. And then, yeah, they said I'll get a report of how many eggs they froze, but they told me that before I left. Some things that are not on here, but they also told me not to take a bath. I don't remember how long they said. I want to say it was a week or maybe it was 10 days. I should probably find out. I thought it was going to be on this paper, but it's not. The nurse, before my procedure, she told me not to jump, jog, or do any type of upside down yoga poses for 10 days following the procedure. So I'm just going to follow that, and I probably will just go the same amount of time without taking a bath. I think it's just because of the bacteria in the water or something like that. But yeah, so at this point I feel fine. I'm just following all these rules as a precaution because even though I feel fine, there's no telling what may happen. I actually had to force myself to sit down because I was like really tempted to just kind of get up and move around because I felt fine. So yes, different people have different recovery. I've heard some people can be a lot more bloated or tired or kind of just feeling gross afterwards. I was fine. I do think one thing that helped was that I was drinking Pedialyte the whole day prior to, and I drink Pedialyte the whole day of as well. Because I've seen multiple people say that, that helped. Some people who said they weren't feeling well and then they started drinking electrolytes and then they felt like a whole new person. So I definitely feel like hydration is major key. Additionally, if somebody is at risk for what they call ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome or OHSS, then your recovery would not be as easy. I was not at risk for that in part because I did not have as many eggs. I only had 7, whereas some people I've heard can have like 20 something eggs. So in that case, you would obviously be at like higher risk for like hyperstimulating, which is not good. But your doctor would have already told you if you were at risk for that or not. And they probably would have put like measures in place. So hopefully you don't have that. Yeah, I think that's it in terms of the recovery. So then I've gotten some questions about like how this works, like what happens after you freeze your eggs. So the thing is that basically you have a few options. They do not take all of your eggs out. I could do another round if I wanted to, but they do not take all of your eggs. So I can still have a baby the natural way and pretend like none of this ever happened. Or if that doesn't plan out, I could still do a regular IVF cycle where I go through the retrieval and then they do the embryos and then, basically would test the embryo and then put the embryo back into you. Or I could use my frozen eggs, which would basically be they would take the frozen eggs and then finish the IVF cycle with the fertilization, the testing, and the reimplantation. Or I could, adopt. So I have a few options now, which is why I kind of ultimately decided not to do a second round, at least for now, even though I did not get as many eggs as I wanted. I got 7. I was hoping for at least 10, hopefully more like 15, but it is what it is. I did what I set out to do, which was to give myself another option in my list of options. I could still do another round at some point in the future if I choose. Maybe I'll change my mind in a year or two. We'll see. But for now, I think I'm good. And just to add in terms of that, I would recommend if you're freezing eggs to try to do it earlier in the year if you are going through your insurance, because since it's subject to your deductible and your out-of-pocket max and stuff like that, if I were to do another round like now in the same year, basically the second round would be free in terms of dollars. Now I do have a limit in terms of my fertility benefit, so it would still count towards that limit. But in terms of money, it wouldn't cost me any additional money because I've already reached my out-of-pocket max. Whereas since I don't have time to squeeze in another round this year, I would have to do it like next year or some point in the future. And so I would basically have to pay another 2,000 and something dollars, which is not a huge amount, but it's still, I don't know if it's worth it given the goals that I had for myself going into this process. Somebody else may have different goals. For them, it may be a different situation, but I would definitely keep that in mind if you are thinking about this. Like, definitely, if you think you might do multiple rounds, try to make sure that you do it earlier in the year. That way, you can fit multiple rounds in the same insurance year as opposed to like spacing them out. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you really do have to kind of clear your schedule during this time. You're not supposed to do anything strenuous, right? So you're not really going to be able to run around behind children. I mean, you can to some extent, but like you're not supposed to be doing too much. So you definitely want to make sure you have a good support system who's going to make sure that, you can kind of make sure if you have kids already that your kids are, taken care of, because you're probably not gonna be able to like lift them and stuff like that. You're not really gonna be able to exercise. You can like work like all throughout the process except the day of the procedure, obviously, but you basically need to make sure that you can kind of just be flexible, because the way that it works is that like you have to get up in the morning throughout the process. I talked about this in my other video, but you have to get up in the morning, get your blood drawn before 8:30 a.m. And then you have to go to the doctor, and you're doing this like every 1, 2, 3 days. And it's like, you don't know up front which days you're going to have to do this. You don't know what day your procedure is going to be on. You don't know any of these things. It's all like a play it by ear type of situation. And so you need to be able to be like, okay, Thursday at 2:00, I can come to the doctor. And whatever it is that you had to do on Thursday at 2:00, like you need to either be free or you need to be able to reschedule it, because there's no guarantee that the doctor will be available in the morning, right? And it's not like you can just come on Friday instead. Like that's not how this works. So it's like you pretty much need to be in a state where you can kind of just like whatever time they say to come, you come. Yeah, I think that is about it. So, in terms of the cost, let me give a summary of the cost because I've been getting a lot of questions about this as well. So, as I mentioned, I did have insurance coverage for the procedure, for the whole process. So, my job, we have fertility coverage through a company called Progeny. There's other companies that do similar things. There's other companies that offer Progeny, and then there's other like things that are like Progeny that people offer as well. If you have regular medical insurance, egg freezing would probably not be covered because it's considered elective, but IVF may be covered if you have been trying to have a baby for X amount of time, stuff like that. So you could definitely ask your regular insurance company. Worst case scenario, they tell you no. Otherwise, I would look into like searching companies that offer like services like Progeny and try to get a job there because it definitely helps.
So I have a spreadsheet where I have a summary of the costs. So in this first tab, the itemized tab, I have each item listed separately with the build cost, the discounted cost, and my cost. The discounted cost is basically if there was some sort of negotiated rate with the insurance cost, with the insurance company, I'm sorry, and the build cost is what was actually submitted by the doctor. And then my cost is, of course, what I paid. So what I did was any cases where the build cost and the discounted cost were different, I've highlighted them in this blue color. Now, I don't have all the bills for everything. I think part of that is because I just kind of finished my contribution, so I just haven't gotten anything. But anything that I don't have a bill for is in this orange color. So those ones I really don't know what the cost is. You could kind of estimate the cost for the monitoring exam because I would guess it should be the same as like the baseline appointment. But yeah, in terms of the fees for the procedure, I really don't know what those are supposed to be. It's been a few weeks and I was hoping to have that by now for purposes of this video, but I still don't have it. Okay, so then I have the summary tab where I summarize everything by category. So you can see for blood work, the build cost was about $1,300. I paid about $400 for exams. As of now, it's about $1,700. I've paid about $400. The medication is definitely the most expensive one. So this is like $13,000. So this is the complete cost of the medication. Everything is included here. And then other, I don't remember what that was. And then for the procedure, I'm missing all the bills related to that. So if you are interested to know the complete cost, I would definitely check back here in this spreadsheet, which will be linked in the description box. And yeah, unfortunately, I really don't have the information and I just wanted to go ahead and get the video uploaded because I have no idea when these people are going to send me the bills for all of that.
So as you can see, I only paid about $2,100 because I had already spent a few $100s earlier in the year on miscellaneous things, and my out-of-pocket max is about $2,600. Now, if you look at the total cost, it's quite high. It's about 10 times more than what I paid. And you can also see that a huge chunk of that is the medication. That is why this fertility stuff costs so much. These medications are very expensive. So I don't know if there's any way to get them cheaper, but they're very expensive. If you are a self-pay patient, things may be cheaper. I know sometimes like pharmacies and doctors and things of that nature, they do have different costs for self-pay versus insurance. So maybe it'll be a little bit less, but honestly, tell you the truth, I would plan to spend about $20,000 for an egg freezing cycle if you don't have insurance. If you're doing IVF, I would probably go up maybe to like 30K or so just to cover the fertilization and whatever else. I have no idea how much that costs, but it's better to have extra and not need it than to not have enough and be like looking around looking funny. But yeah, definitely make sure that you save your money because you're gonna need it. So I think that is all I wanted to share in this video. Definitely check out my previous two videos if you have not already to get more details in terms of the blood work and how I was during the injections and everything like that. Overall, my experience was good. I didn't have any type of major side effects or anything like that throughout the entire process. Even with the hormones and all of that, I was pretty much fine. I did sometimes get, some soreness like right after taking the injection. So I would kind of just like lay down for 30 minutes to an hour afterwards. And after that, I was typically fine. But yeah, if I decide to do another round of egg freezing, or maybe if I do IVF going forward, if YouTube is still a thing that I'm doing, I will make an update video at that time. But in the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. And I'll see you next time. Bye.